The Billionaire's Secret: How the Ultra-Rich Build and Protect Their Wealth. Buy, Borrow, Die Explained. There's a popular joke floating around that billionaires wouldn't even bother to pick up a $100 bill off the ground because in the time it takes to bend down, they'd make more money just standing still. While this sounds exaggerated, it highlights a fundamental misunderstanding about how billionaires actually make their money. Unlike what most people think, billionaires don't earn wealth primarily through salaries or cash income. Instead, they leverage a system based on owning assets, a system that's almost impossible to exploit unless you already own significant wealth. This system is known as buy, borrow, die. Let's break down how it works and why it's so powerful. The illusion of income. Why most people get it wrong. For most people, wealth means income. The paycheck you get every 2 weeks, the bonus at work, or maybe a raise if you're lucky. Your financial life is largely defined by how much money hits your bank account each month. You live paycheck to paycheck, budgeting around your income. But for the ultra-wealthy, income is actually a problem. Why? Because in the U.S., income earned from labor is taxed heavily. Federal income tax rates for high earners can take up to 37%, and when you add state and payroll taxes, the total tax bite can be even worse. This is why the richest people avoid traditional income as much as possible. Elon Musk took $0 in salary from Tesla for years. Warren Buffett has earned only $100,000 annually for the past 40 years. Jeff Bezos earned roughly $80,000 a year as Amazon's CEO. Mark Zuckerberg famously takes a $1 salary. The common thread? These billionaires earn their wealth in equity, shares of companies they helped build or invested in, not in cash. Their wealth isn't sitting in checking accounts. It's tied up in stocks, private businesses, investment funds, and other appreciating assets. Why equity is a game changer: taxes and unrealized gains. Here's the key tax advantage. You don't pay taxes on the increase in value of your assets until you sell them. This is called the realization principle. For example, imagine you buy a house for $100,000. 20 years later, it's worth $1 million. You haven't sold it, so you don't have $1 million in cash. The value is locked in the property. Because you haven't sold, the IRS doesn't tax you on that $900,000 gain. This is known as an unrealized gain. Rich people rarely sell these appreciating assets because selling triggers a tax bill. By holding on to assets, their wealth grows quietly, tax-free on paper. So, if they don't get paid in cash, how do they fund their lifestyles? This is where the real financial wizardry begins. The wealthy don't rely on income. They rely on borrowing against their assets. When regular people take out loans, for a house, a car, or student loans, they often get trapped in debt with high interest rates and payments made from after-tax income. The average American household carries about $148,000 in mortgage debt, part of a $12.66 trillion total mortgage burden in the U.S. As of mid-2025, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate is about 6.85%, nearly double what it was 2 years ago. Let's do the math. A $250,000 mortgage at 6.85% interest over 30 years means monthly payments around $1,600. Over the life of the loan, you'll pay back roughly $576,000, more than double the original amount borrowed. The first decade of payments is mostly interest, meaning you're paying just to live somewhere, not building true equity. Credit card interest rates often range from 18% to 25%, and auto or student loans follow similar patterns. You pay high interest on money you barely reduce, all with after-tax dollars. This double whammy, paying taxes on income and interest on debt, is why many people never escape the rat race. Why banks view you differently than the ultra-rich banks don't care about how much you earn. They care about how safe your money is. If you make $150,000 a year but have no savings, no collateral, and a volatile job, you're a red flag to lenders. They look at your credit score, debt-to-income ratio, employment history, everything that signals whether you'll reliably repay loans. Someone earning $40,000 with a paid-off house might be more bankable than someone making $200,000 but drowning in credit card debt. Because of this risk assessment, consumer loans come with high interest rates. You're paying for the perceived risk of lending to you. The buy, borrow, die strategy, how the ultra-rich play the game. Phase 1. Buy. Acquire appreciating assets. The wealthy don't aim to stack cash. They acquire assets that grow in value over time. Stocks, real estate, private businesses, intellectual property, fine art, farmland, and more. The goal isn't to flip or sell quickly, but to hold these assets as they appreciate. That's why CEOs get paid mostly in stock options. Their wealth compounds inside these assets, and as long as they don't sell, they avoid capital gains taxes. For example, if your stock portfolio grows from $1 million to $5 million, you don't owe taxes on the $4 million gain unless you sell. The same applies to real estate. Buy property for $2 million, and if it's worth $6 million a decade later, no taxes are due unless you sell or refinance. Phase 2. Borrow. Unlock liquidity without selling. So, how do the wealthy pay for their lifestyles if they don't sell assets? They borrow against those appreciating assets. Banks like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan offer credit facilities, lines of credit secured by your assets. Typically, banks lend 50% of the value of stocks and 60-70% for real estate. For example, if you own $100 million in real estate, you could get a $60-70 million loan at low interest. This is almost like free money. Let's say you take a $50 million loan at 2.5% interest. You use $5 million for lifestyle expenses, homes, jets, staff, philanthropy. You invest $20 million into new ventures or funds. The rest goes into more appreciating assets. Your annual interest is $1.25 million, which might even be tax deductible. Meanwhile, your original assets keep growing. If your portfolio rises to $150 million, you can borrow more, refinance, or restructure. You've turned paper wealth into usable cash without selling or triggering taxes. Why this works for the rich but not for most people. Regular people face high interest rates, monthly principal payments, and taxed wages before even paying debt. The system assumes they're risky borrowers, but the wealthy are the collateral. They don't owe the bank anything. They're partners. Banks love lending to them because they're reliable, low-risk clients who generate steady income for the bank. Wealthy clients borrow hundreds of millions, roll over loans for years, and use the same banks for investing, estate planning, and family office services. Low interest rates, less tax, and more credit access create a powerful cycle of wealth. Phase 3. Die. Passing wealth tax-free to the next generation. Eventually, everyone dies, and this triggers the final phase. Here's where the step-up in basis rule comes in. Imagine Grandpa bought $1 million worth of Apple stock in the 1990s. Over 30 years, it's worth $10 million. If Grandpa sold it during his lifetime, he'd owe capital gains tax on $9 million, potentially 20% or more federally, plus state taxes, losing about $1.8 million to taxes. But Grandpa doesn't sell. When he dies, the cost basis of those shares resets to their market value on the day of death. Instead of inheriting shares with a $1 million basis and $9 million in taxable gains, heirs inherit shares with a $10 million basis. If they sell the next day, they owe zero capital gains tax. The tax liability vanishes with Grandpa. This rule applies to real estate, businesses, and other assets held until death, often passed through trusts or estate planning vehicles. What about the loans? After death. Many wealthy individuals take out large life insurance policies inside irrevocable trusts to pay off debts upon death. The insurance payout settles outstanding loans, so heirs receive clean, unencumbered assets. The original owner borrows against appreciating assets for decades, pays minimal taxes, enjoys incredible liquidity, and passes wealth down tax-free. No selling, no income tax, no capital gains, no estate tax if planned properly. Final thoughts. Own the right things or work for the system. The game is simple. Own appreciating assets, borrow against them, and pass them on smartly. The system works for those who understand and use it. If you don't own assets, you work for the system. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this valuable, imagine what you can learn with the Alux app. Expert-led courses, curated lessons, and mentorship in your pocket to help you grow stronger, wiser, and wealthier every day. See you next time.